I am 45 hours into Metaphor ReFantazio, Atlus's latest title that hopes to become one of the company's great pillars. In a time where it's risky to make new content, Atlus took the plunge, creating an all-new imaginative world while holding a mirror up to our own. At first glance, it may have felt similarly to its predecessors, but as the mature story unfolds, it really begins to become something of its own. Thank you, Atlus, for sponsoring today's video on Metaphor ReFantazio, available now and has a demo that allows you to transfer progress into the main game. So immediately it opens up with Louise, a powerful man in strength and magics, killing the king. We already know the culprit. Metaphor splits into these fourth wall segments, addressing you, the player, and within the world of Metaphor, you can name your MC. He's joined by a fairy named Gallica, trying to give word to our contact in the military about a curse-afflicted princess status. Before you meet with your contact, you go to the capital, Grand Trad, and woo boy is the discrimination thick. It's heavy, it's everywhere. You hear whispers of folks judging you and Elda, an unspoken ninth tribe who are seen as simply the worst, constantly treated poorly, even by lower tribes. You're constantly belittled, dismissed, the feeling of always looking over your shoulder because you just don't know who's plotting something against you because of your tribe. It's incredibly heavy-handed on its classism, racism, especially going the extra mile to overhear chatter, talk with folks who don't want to talk to you, quests that have you paying more because of your tribe. This part of the writing I liked, because to jump around a bit, ultimately the quest in this game is not only to kill Luis, but become the next king, and hopefully unite all tribes. So it's a tale of the underdog, someone that everyone slept on, kicked, diminished, is now seen as a uniter. I look forward to the dialogue changing, to people's minds and hearts changing, realizing no person should be limited or judged based on the tribe they hail from, to acknowledge tribes' differences and similarities and turn that into a tool to uplift the one great tribe. A tribe that doesn't see race, so to speak, but people as equals. Alternatively, some of the dialogue is a bit too on the nose. What I mean by that is a bit telly and less showy at points. The word anxiety comes up a lot, and I understand that it's meant to be a central theme of the game, and fair enough, but I wish the game trusted the intelligence of its players without having to say anxiety every other scene. But the events after the death of the monarch leads you to be in the running for the crown, while also trying to curry favor with the Kingslayer. While the beginning is very information heavy as it's trying to establish a brand new, vast world, I like how multifaceted it is. There's a lot of details to carry, but when you boil it down to the main points of becoming king, overcoming discrimination, undoing a curse, killing a Kingslayer, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. I also want to give a lot of love to the writing. They did a great job making it feel like you're reading a fantasy novel. I love the flowery dialogue brought to further life with voice acting. When traveling between areas, I adore the narration, character interactions are A+, like after the demo, it only gets better. All the characters are great. At first, I was a stroll girl, then Hulkenberg, and I really thought I wasn't gonna like the fourth character. I thought he was going to be the mascot, the comedic relief, but no, he's amazing, and between him and Hulkenberg are my favorites. But rest assured, there's no wrong answer. They're all fantastic. Even the MC having a voice is a step in the right direction in shaping him into an actual character. I've already touched on the combat before. As a quick refresher, I love it. Firstly, how you engage is you hit them first, break their stun gauge, and initiate a squad battle, which brings you to traditional turn-based combat, and they're stunned for a turn. If the enemy is significantly weaker than you can just kill them on the field and reap all the rewards. You can even opt out to not squad battle and just fight them in action combat. Wouldn't recommend it though, as it's slow and clearly not a fully fleshed out system. Attack and move out of the way. If enemies hit you, then they go first, and it could very well end your life. I wish there were indicators of where enemies were in relation to you, because sometimes they're off camera, you can't see all around you, so they get the jump on you. But how action combat is meant to be used and the smooth transition into turn-based feels great. Real quick side note though, it's really cool that depending on what archetype you have depends on how you hit enemies on the field. The Seeker uses a sword, but a mage has this AoE effect. It's a small but really cool detail.
Right. Let's settle this quick.
Calm everyone.
So traditional combat pulls from SMT with its press turn system. Attack an enemy weaknesses, it only consumes half a turn, but if you miss or hit an enemy strength, you lose turns. Enemies are bound by those same rules. Summoning archetypes is your magic and will decide what weapons and armors you can equip. This also decides your strength and weaknesses. Something new I learned is not only the MC can use various archetypes, but so can your allies. So you could have a team of knights if you wanted, or mages, whatever the situation calls for. The trade-off for all party members being able to switch archetypes is not being able to switch them in battle, like in Persona. Everyone is locked in and is only switchable outside of combat. And this is where I struggled a bit. The lack of flexibility can very well be your downfall. Most of the battles I lost were because I did not have the proper setup, and thus far there has been no way to change archetypes in battle. Even with an okay setup, I found it to be an uphill battle. Bosses, even regular enemies, are far from pushovers. I'm grateful Metaphor is forgiving when restarting a boss battle, puts you right back before the battle to readjust. There is, however, a turn back time mechanic that lets you restart the battle instantly. Anyways, studying archetypes does cost a currency known as magla, and can be done only in academia. But once you've studied it, you've got it for good, and it can be changed outside of academia. Also, skill inheritance. You can take skills from one archetype, and with magla, give it to another archetype. For example, mages won't learn a healing move, but seekers can heal. So you can take a healing move from the Seeker and teach it to the Mage. Another way to power up or even learn new archetypes is gaining followers, people that support your quest. Strengthening those bonds will unlock various abilities. So if you see someone who doesn't look like a plain Jane, maybe talk to them. The general rule of thumb I apply to these sort of collect allies is one with the portrait is important. And I must gush about this small but mighty change. While you're hanging out with your companion, you'll be asked questions and you're given choices. Unlike Persona, where the points go to an invisible gauge, in Metaphor you earn extra magla, so you never have to fret if you're maximizing your bonds. Either you get a lot of magla or you don't. But no matter what, the bond will progress. You may get stumped by royal virtues, but you'll never have to worry about spending time with an ally and not progressing. Speaking of allies, fighting among them and depending on what archetype they have equipped will allow for synthesis moves, essentially combo moves that will eat up both party members' turns, so be wise. But it allows for extra buffs or damage, etc., allowing for more options in combat. Same with formations that can be changed in combat. People in the front do more damage, but take more damage. People in the back take less damage, but their melee attacks do less. You know, I remember getting a comment on my previous Metaphor coverage, something asking about the difficulty. I'm gonna say it's definitely there at the start. As soon as you start building up your bonds, inheriting skills, unlocking strong archetypes, it quickly balances out. So stick through it. Outside of the combative antics, Metaphor follows the Persona formula to a T. You have X amount of days before a big event happens. You need to clear the dungeon beforehand or else game over. Meanwhile, you raise your royal virtues, like wisdom or imagination, which open up quests, while also keeping an eye on your popularity to become king. Dungeons typically are winding paths. Main dungeons are far more expansive and varied. They have magla hollows used to save, and you can travel between them for easier navigation. Sometimes you'll run into a crystal that needs to be destroyed on the field from spawning more enemies. Sometimes you'll find other travelers. Now, I want to briefly touch up on the art, which I believe is a beautiful mesh of Renaissance and anime. I think they did an excellent job giving it its own unique identity here. I do think it can feel a bit overwhelming at times. It's clearly trying to be as stylish as its predecessors, and I think this is evident in the menus. Renaissance and paintings go hand in hand. A lot of brushstrokes, splatters, and real quickly on the archetype design, I love them. The merchant is by far my favorite. I love a sultan with a belly full of gold, but also these enemy designs. You thought Catherine had all the eldritch horrors. You sweet summer child. Something that was brought to my attention, which is very interesting, is how they borrowed from Bosch's art. Check it out. The first monster you encounter, this chicken egg, is seen in Bosch's The Last Judgment. The first boss is clearly inspired by the Garden of Earthly Delights. Also, it's really important to note that some of these really weird boss monsters are called humans. So I'm really wondering where Metaphor is going with this, as well as being excited to see what other Renaissance artists this game pulls from. Lastly, my opinion on the music hasn't changed. I still think it's amazing. Shoji Meguro is great, water is wet. Depending on what you're looking for in Metaphor, it can be a familiar experience or too safe with its culmination of various Atlus titles, Persona, SMT, Etrian Odyssey. Where Metaphor truly stands out is its breakaway from contemporary RPGs. It only gets better as you continue your quest for the throne. I adore the mature themes and characters having a healthy amount of levity amidst the ugly discrimination in the United Kingdom of Uchronia. Needless to say, I am very curious to see how Metaphor establishes itself as one of Atlus's new pillars and just how the story of fantasy meets reality plays out. And if you're just as curious as I, check out Metaphor ReFantazio, out now, rocking a beautiful Metacritic score of 94. And check out my other videos on beloved Atlus titles. Until next time, mwah!